Welcome to People in Profit. This week we're checking in on the hotel industry after 18 months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Executives have gathered here in Paris for the Global Lodging Forum, where they're discussing the various issues they're now facing. We all know that travel has slumped over the past year and a half, but here in Europe, many destinations actually had a better tourist season than they were expecting this summer. Emerald Maxwell has more.
It was a summer many didn't dare hope for. Despite the Delta variant and ongoing restrictions, much of Europe has had a better than expected tourism season. In particular, countries along the eastern Adriatic coast, like Montenegro and Croatia, have bounced back. The Croatian National Tourism Board says overnight stays in August reached 93% of the pre-crisis 2019 level, and the vast majority of these visitors were from abroad.
From the first moment,
the tourism-dependent country launched a Stay Safe in Croatia campaign to lure them back.
We continued our communication campaigns, vaccinations for tourism workers, key messages that were aimed at protecting tourists in 2021. Visitor numbers are very good, and we still have several weeks to go. We have even exceeded 2019's record figures for the number of visitors from some places, such as from Poland.
In Spain and Italy, an increase in domestic tourists helped to make up for fewer foreign tourists. Italians broke a new record this year, with 23 million of them choosing to summer within their home country. That's compared to 17 million last year and 18 million in 2019. The same is true of France. The French tourism minister said about 85% of French holidaymakers vacationed on home soil this year, versus 75% 2 years ago. They flocked to the coast, but also to mountain areas, which has helped their recovery after a difficult winter season. Cities, on the other hand, particularly Paris, have struggled without the usual crop of foreign visitors. According to the city's tourism office, Greater Paris attracted between 3.6 and 4.7 million tourists between June and August, less than half the 10 million during the same period in 2019.
Well, I'm joined now by Karin Sheppard, who's Senior Vice President and Managing Director for Europe of IHG, the international group that includes brands like the Intercontinental, where we are here in Paris today, but also Crowne, Plaza, Holiday Inn and much more as well. Tell us, how was your summer season 2021 in Europe compared to 2020 and 2019 before everything that's happened since?
Well, it's fair to say that it really was quite a strong summer in many locations. Now, there's always a lens around domestic and international and different levels of brands within our family. But overall, I would say we were quite positively surprised with how quickly demand actually returned. We said from the outset that we knew that this would be temporary and that the desire to travel would come back. And we've certainly seen the absolute proof of that throughout Europe, actually. Coastal locations have done better, naturally. Domestic was really the main driver, but we are now starting to see it levelling out and also the cities starting to get their fair share of demand as well.
So overall, across the Europe region that you look after, where are we compared to pre-pandemic levels? Would you be back to kind of 80–90%?
We were actually, at the peak of the summer, there were locations that started beating their 2019 because there was such strong domestic demand. It'll take some time to get back to where we were in 2019 overall. The STR projections are saying 24 perhaps we'll get there, but we do expect that it will now start really moving ahead into 22, 23, and really the driver of that is we are getting far more predictability in terms of the ability to travel and to plan travel. The vaccination programs pretty much across Europe are heading in very much the right direction, and that really will be the driver for business to start to return with far more predictability.
Now, IHG straddles kind of the full range of the market. You've got your very high-end hotels and you've got brands that are kind of more affordable as well. How, across that spectrum, where do you see business returning the strongest?
Well, we actually saw throughout the pandemic our essential brands, Holiday Inn and Holiday Express, do relatively well because there was still project business that needed to go and work, whether that was in the health sector or certain government projects, and that helped boost that part of the market. It has taken longer in luxury, but the moment the leisure travelers could travel, we actually saw them willing to pay more and therefore trade up in terms of brands. So brands like Intercontinental and Kimpton have been doing quite well now that we are getting to the tail end of summer.
As we head into the winter season, you know, business travel becomes all the more important. Where are you now on seeing business travel recover?
Well, business travellers are starting to now plan their travel. And in fact, now that we're in the months of September, it's really interesting to watch what happens. And there are encouraging signs. I think everyone has had enough of dealing with business contacts over Zoom calls and are craving that face-to-face contact. We're hearing from clients that they don't want to be the last to go out and engage and lose a deal as a consequence. So we do start seeing the signs of business recovering. The meetings and events business is probably the one that will follow after that. What we are seeing are smaller meetings starting to occur, and it will take a little while longer before we see the large conferences with a lot of logistics involved.
You're a huge employer across Europe. Were you able to retain your staff during the past year and a half?
Well, we were certainly very fortunate to have the support of government programs in many countries, including here in France. And I think that was a lifeline for many of our smaller owners that were facing some very dire consequences of the pandemic. So that's helped a lot. Now that we can start seeing demand come back, of course, for the industry, it's the opposite problem. We haven't got enough people to actually come and serve our guests and look after them. So we are actively out now recruiting back into the industry, and with that, very focused on making sure that there is a perception of the industry as one where you can get not just a job, but actually a career.
So what are you doing to attract people? And we're talking about more than 100,000 hospitality vacancies just in France. I imagine that's something that's being replicated across the continent. How are you attracting people into the sector?
So we are doing a lot of proactive work on social media to attract particularly the younger people that we want to get back into our hotels. We're holding recruitment days so they get a sense for what we are about. And I think for us, it's really about the whole employee value proposition. Yes, there are the pay, but there's also other benefits. And
are you going to increase pay? Is that part of the...
Well, we're going to have to see what's happening in the market and be responsive. More importantly, we have placed an enormous amount of effort on our corporate responsibility agenda throughout the pandemic, and we are seeing that really resonate with the employees we want to bring back. So it is also about joining a company that you feel you belong in, and that I think will be helping us for the long term.
What about things like working conditions, something that people often find an obstacle in the sector?
Yeah, we've had to really listen to what flexibility and freedom means in hospitality now, because many of our employees have been working in other industries whilst we've been in the height of the impact of the pandemic. So I think we're going to have to rethink how hotel positions actually work, have more flexible part-time roles perhaps that fit into people's lives. So that's something we're very much thinking about.
Something that business across Europe is facing are rising energy costs. We've got warnings of, big gas price increases here in France, electricity price increases down the line as well. How are your hotels preparing for that?
Well, we've actually, as part of our corporate responsibility agenda, have had and continue to have a very strong focus on how we can help hotels save energy. We have a solution in every one of those 6,000 hotels around the world called Green Engage, and it is a tool that helps hotels understand how much energy they are burning and how they can minimize it. We've just issued a white paper on all the things you can do in an existing hotel to become more carbon efficient. So this is something we have to focus on, not just for the cost of energy, but also for the expectations of society, corporate clients, employees, as I said before. We really aspire to become as sustainable as we can possibly be.
Are you hearing it from your hotel managers, though, that they're seeing bills go up?
Of course, there are pressures on the cost lines. We work very closely with our owners as a primarily franchise or managed company in actually working with them on what we can do together, whether that's in procurement initiatives, in energy initiatives and so forth. And I expect we'll continue to have many conversations about that in the months to come.
It's often said in business that no crisis presents itself without an opportunity. What do you see as the kind of growth aspects that you can have coming out of this crisis? Are you planning major investment?
Well, it's really interesting to see that actually, despite the pandemic, investors have been continuing to look at the hotel industry as one that is attractive for investment. So we have continued to sign hotels, open hotels. We just opened the beautiful Kimpton Saint-Honoré next to the Intercontinental here in Paris. And we just launched a new brand. So despite the pandemic, we went ahead with a plan to launch a collection brand for luxury and lifestyle, Vignette Collection.
And that's a focus on leisure travel or more business?
It is particularly for hotels that have their own identity today, but where the owner would like to actually tap into the global reservation system, the global loyalty system that we can offer, and get that boost on driving the recovery. So we see opportunities for that brand across Europe. Similarly, Voco is a real success story for us, a brand we launched only a couple of years ago, and we now have over 50 signed and opened around the world, including here in France. So we've already opened a Voco in Paris Montparnasse, in Strasbourg, and we have hotels coming in Bonn and in Reims. So we can see that there is absolutely a desire to invest in hotels and a demand for global hotel brands to help actually drive the recovery.
Okay, Karin Sheppard, Managing Director for Europe at IHG, thank you very much for speaking to us. Thank you to you for watching. You can find this and all of our previous programmes on the France 24 website and on social media if you want to get in touch with your thoughts or questions. Goodbye for now.
Je regarde France 24 parce qu'en tant qu'étudiante en sciences politiques, ça me permet de rester à jour sur les informations dans le monde, sur les conflits, les débats politiques, tout ça.
الاختلاف بين فرنسا 24 والقنوات التانية في المحتوى المتنوع وفي التوجه الأقرب للحيادية.
I like their coverage, especially with the news and the politics, but also I like the cultural aspect because that, me as a Kenyan, I get to learn a lot about Francophone, Africa, Francophone in general, whether it's in Europe or here, just from France 24.
France 24 m'aide à voir une perspective plus complète du monde et à comprendre différentes langues et différentes cultures.
France 24, with you everywhere, all the time. Liberté, égalité, actualité.